Good evening and thanks so much for joining us. The weekend has arrived. Top business stories today. A lot happening in the markets this week. We spoke with Reece at Merck Investments today to get his main takeaways. Capitol Hill will soon debate whether to extend enhanced unemployment benefits beyond this month. The president says he doesn't want anything that discourages people from going back to work. Leaders of the European Union are negotiating a massive virus relief package. The bloc's president says the stakes couldn't be higher. And the Japanese government is working to shift production out of China. Japan is subsidizing 87 companies to move back home or to countries in Southeast Asia. The S&P 500 and the Dow rose for the week, with utilities, real estate and healthcare among Friday's strongest gainers. Then the Nasdaq ended lower for the week, with Netflix shares tumbling after it cautioned investors that new subscribers would slow down in the coming months. On Friday, the Dow fell near 63 points or 0.23%. The S&P 500 gained 9 points or 0.28%, and the Nasdaq added 29 points or 0.28%. As I mentioned, we caught up with Reece with Merck Investments just before the closing bell to get his thoughts on the week. Great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be with you.
The big headlines today: Netflix earnings missed estimates. Do you think it's a signal of maybe a broader trend?
Well, I think we've seen the mega cap growth stocks underperforming generally over the past week or so. And that shouldn't be too unexpected, just given where, how far we'd come on mega cap growth stocks. If you look at the NASDAQ 100, which is Microsoft, Apple, and the FANG names, that's really been on a tear for the past few months and was trading at the top end of its trend range and probably due for a little bit of a correction. So maybe a healthy thing to see some of these tech stocks taking a back seat and seeing some of the rest of the market catch up a little bit here.
And any other big takeaways for the week overall?
Well, I think we've definitely seen some value outperform growth, and the smaller cap names outperform the bigger cap names. So that's probably a healthy development. And technically, the picture for the S&P 500 overall looks pretty good. We've seen the 50-day moving average cross above the 200-day moving average, which is thought to be an important, at least psychological, technical development. And it's unlikely, I would say, given that development and the fact that we've retraced about 80% of the decline that we saw in February and March, that this is part of an ongoing bear market. I do think we're in a new bull market cycle, if you want to call it that. I think of it more as an ongoing secular bull market that started many years ago, that was interrupted by an exogenous shock, crash, and recession, which I do think we are coming out of now.
And as a portfolio manager, do you worry when you start to see the Fed maybe taking a step back, pulling some money out like we've seen over the past few weeks, or you're pretty confident?
Well, the Fed's balance sheet's come down a little bit, but that's primarily been because of the foreign exchange swap lines that were put into place primarily with Japan and Europe to help those jurisdictions that, because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, a lot of companies around the world borrow in U.S. dollars, and that can create a lot of stress when you get a global recession. And so the Fed, back in the global financial crisis, set up these swap lines and pretty quickly enacted those in this crisis. And so there was a lot of participation in that. It's basically foreign central banks borrowing dollars from the Federal Reserve, and that's primarily where we're seeing the reduction in the Fed's balance sheet, which, if anything, is probably a good sign, meaning that the worst of the crisis is over. But I think the Fed, generally speaking, is still has been and will continue to be very, very aggressive and very supportive.
With so many things happening in the markets, is there anything in particular keeping an eye on? Maybe vaccine, I suppose, and maybe lockdowns being lifted. Anything else in particular?
Well, certainly developments on the vaccine, I think, are extremely important, not just for the markets and the economy, but for all of us in terms of trying to get back to a more normal lifestyle in many ways. And thankfully, in terms of the views from Dr. Fauci and former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, they remain optimistic on a vaccine or multiple vaccines being ready either at the end of this year or early next year. So that's very encouraging and certainly something to keep an eye on it as far as progress goes with those various candidates. Therapeutics will also be important in terms of bridging the gap between now and then. Here in the U.S., clearly we're seeing an uptrend in cases. That's been going on for a couple of months, and unfortunately that seems to now be translating into an uptrend in daily deaths. And so we'll have to see how well we can do with therapeutics and with various ongoing mitigation measures to try to do the best we can until a vaccine, an effective vaccine, is out there and available.
Yeah, we have our fingers crossed. Nick, thanks so much for the update.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
And while we watch out for a vaccine, there's still the issue of everyone who's become unemployed. Enhanced unemployment benefits are set to expire at the end of July, and there's debate about what to do next. We caught up with Emel Akan earlier for the latest. Emel, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Emel, I believe on the Hill they're in a disagreement, not really like them. It's over the new coronavirus relief bill, if I'm not mistaken. What seems to be the hurdle?
Negotiations for the next coronavirus relief package may soon begin, Paul, but there is one big hurdle, which is the extra unemployment insurance, the benefit passed under the CARES Act. Democrats and Republicans are divided over the $600 weekly bonus, which will expire at the end of this month. Democrats wants to extend this benefit. House Democrats indeed already passed the HEROES Act in May, which would basically extend the unemployment benefits through January next year. But Republicans do not want to extend this $600 weekly additional payment, and I believe this is going to be a major disagreement with if both parties start to talk on a new relief bill. House Speaker Pelosi said yesterday that this is not a stimulus. It's an urgent necessity. But Republicans say this bonus is discouraging workers from returning to work. And they are right, because many studies show that the bonus is so generous that it could cause labor supply disincentives as the economy reopens and businesses get back to normal. For example, a study by the University of Chicago showed that nearly 70% of people who receive unemployment benefits, the 600 weekly benefit, their compensation exceeds their prior wage. And nearly, this is crazy, 20% of unemployed workers are receiving benefits at least twice as large as their lost wage, according to the same study. So the system is rewarding jobless workers more. And I think that Democrats do understand this concept, and I think they are willing to make some compromises.
And considering that, do you think they'll be able to come to an agreement before? I believe the enhanced unemployment benefits are set to expire at the end of the month. They don't have long to negotiate.
That is true. It's very stressful. And on the unemployment insurance side, President Trump made it clear that he didn't want to see anything that discourages work. In recent weeks, some Republicans suggested lowering the weekly benefit to $400 or less, so from $600 to $400 or maybe less. So I believe at the end, both sides may reach an agreement by reducing the additional unemployment benefit. Speaker Pelosi also yesterday signaled that they are willing to make compromises. I want to mention this additional thing that some Republicans are proposing. Some Republicans want to replace the unemployment bonus with a back-to-work bonus, which is a cash bonus to reward workers who return to their jobs. And I asked the question to Speaker Pelosi yesterday to see what she thinks about this return to work cash bonus proposal by Republicans. She said Republicans don't have any idea what they're talking about. She said that the Republicans do not understand the situation. She implied that providing safe work environment is more important than giving bonuses to workers. So this bonus is a bit complicated concept, and it might be helpful, but some economists are saying that there are 14 million more unemployed workers than job openings. So millions will remain jobless no matter what they do, so it won't help people. So it will be a very interesting debate in the next few days or weeks before this insurance expires, Paul.
Emel, we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
The Trump administration says it's investing $153 million in America's countryside. The money will go towards small and low-income areas. It's for essential services like nursing homes and hospitals.
The Trump administration is investing $153 million into America's countryside, focusing on small and low-income communities. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will distribute the funds. They're expected to benefit 2 million Americans across 23 states. The program will allocate funds based on population and median household income. Areas with fewer than 20,000 residents are eligible. Priority is given to locations with fewer than 5,500 people and communities that are below 80% of the state's median household income. The program gives affordable funding to essential services such as hospitals, nursing homes, child care centers, and community centers. A health center in Woodsfield, Ohio received nearly $1 million in funding. The center provides services to over 3,000 local residents. The money will come in the form of grants, low-interest loans, and commercial financing. So far, close to 100 projects have received funding under the current round of the program.
The Japanese government is paying 87 companies to leave China and bring manufacturing home or relocate to a country in Southeast Asia. It'll cost over $500 million to do it. 30 companies are taking production to places like Laos, Vietnam, and Malaysia. The other 57 are bringing production back to Japan. More are expected to follow in phase 2 of the effort. Japan allocated over $2 billion this year to make it happen. The country had trouble getting critical supplies like masks early on in the outbreak. The subsidies will help Japan build resilient supply chains and reduce reliance on China. Leaders of the European Union are working on a massive virus relief plan. They haven't agreed on who exactly gets what. The deal aims to help member nations that have been most affected by the pandemic.
European Union leaders met in Brussels for the first time since the pandemic began. The Commission is expected to deliver a budget and virus recovery fund equivalent to about $2 trillion US. About 750 billion euros of that would go to help economies most affected by the virus. The Commission president said they can emerge stronger from the crisis if they do it right.
With Next Generation EU, we have the chance not only to overcome the crisis, but also to modernize our single market and our union, to bring forward the European Green Deal and the digitalization.
The EU is suffering through the worst recession in its history, and member states are fighting over who should pay the most to help other countries, and which nations should get the most to turn around their battered economies. Leaders emphasize the need to compromise.
I have to say that the differences are still very, very big, and that I therefore cannot yet predict whether we will reach an agreement this time. I wish we do, but we have to face reality.
Others were more optimistic.
And there's absolutely no reason why we cannot get a deal done at this summit. Maybe some compromises will be necessary, but we need to be certain that we achieve an ambitious solution because our citizens expect nothing less of us.
Dutch opposition and a threat of a Hungarian veto weigh on the chances of finalizing a deal. The European stock market stayed flat Friday as investors wait to see how our relief plan will affect businesses.
And up next, apartment rents are dropping in New York City. And America's largest protective clothing producer is taking action to fight fraud related to its products. Find out more after the break. New York City landlords are cutting rents for apartments near offices. StreetEasy says the biggest share of price cuts came in Manhattan, and the Flatiron area cut rents more than any other neighborhood. As many as 45% of rental listings there were discounted. And over 40% of apartments in the financial district and Midtown West saw price cuts. An economist with StreetEasy says rent cuts are mostly in areas that are close to Manhattan's prime office towers. Since most people are working from home and aren't worried about the commute, apartments farther away from the central business areas are more popular. In comparison, the outskirts of Queens and Brooklyn saw much smaller rent discounts. And 3M is taking action against people trying to profit off the pandemic. It filed over a dozen lawsuits to fight fraud, counterfeiting, and even price gouging related to products like its N95 mask.
3M says it's filed 18 lawsuits in connection with claims of fraud, counterfeiting, and price gouging related to its products. The company is America's leading manufacturer of key protective equipment in the fight against COVID-19. It says its legal team has investigated over 4,000 reports globally. And as a result of the investigations, more than 7,000 e-commerce listings with fraudulent or counterfeit product offerings have been removed. Also, it says over 10,000 false or deceptive social media posts related to its products have been taken down. A top corporate leader said, quote, "The schemes we shut down were not only unlawful, they also endangered lives and wasted precious time and resources by diverting buyers from legitimate sources of much-needed respirators." The lawsuits are part of a series of ongoing actions to fight fraud related to the outbreak and to stop what the company calls pandemic profiteers. 3M says courts have issued 6 temporary restraining orders and 4 preliminary injunctions so far, all to stop N95 sales that it says are unlawful. The company says in some cases its actions have led to criminal charges.
LL Bean has outgrown its direct-to-customer sales model and is signing its first wholesale agreements in the United States. The retailer is taking advantage of the surge in demand they saw during the pandemic. Analysts say this is a smart way to get their products in front of more consumers without the risks of opening new stores and committing to leases. The 108-year-old retailer wants to use momentum from its thriving pandemic sales to win customers over for life. The key was finding retailers that share their customer service philosophy. LL Bean backpacks and water bottles are already available in select Staples stores, and customers can expect more to come in sporting good chain Scheels and Nordstrom stores in the fall. And Huawei's rivals in the UK say they're ready to step in without disrupting customer services. It comes after the UK announced it's banning Huawei from its 5G networks. All of its networks will be required to phase out Huawei by 2027.
Telecom providers Ericsson and Nokia say they are ready to step in after the UK announced it was phasing out the use of Huawei in 5G networks. The UK's digital minister said Tuesday that telecom providers are banned from buying Huawei equipment starting the end of this year. The US government has claimed that Huawei is a security risk and urged allies to shun its equipment. Both Nokia and Ericsson have said that they can replace all Huawei equipment in the UK's networks. They also say this can be done without any disruption to customer services. In the UK, Huawei currently accounts for around 2/3 of BT's mobile network, 1/3 of Vodafone, and network provider 3UK is only using Huawei. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson initially resisted concerns. He allowed Huawei to roll out a new high-speed network in Britain in January. But things changed in May when the US blocked Huawei's access to US chips. The UK's move is likely to build pressure on other countries to split from Huawei, most notably in Germany. Huawei makes up to 90% of German provider Deutsche Telekom's network equipment. German officials worry that banning Huawei 5G could invite retaliation against German exports by Beijing. Germany is China's second largest exporter after the US.
Chinese social media is buzzing with rumors that Chinese banks are collapsing. In some areas, lines have piled up with people trying to withdraw their money, and Now local bank regulators and even the police are stepping in to try and calm people down.
Rumors of Chinese banks collapsing have flooded social media in China. In the past month, worried customers have descended on 3 banks to withdraw their money. In Hebei province, local regulators had to step in and vouch for a bank while the police blocked customers. The world's largest banking system was already on shaky grounds after several bailouts and the first bank seizure in 2 decades. The outbreak of the CCP virus, which originated in China, only made things worse. The bank runs in Hebei came after local officials started a pilot program limiting large transactions. It requires clients to report transactions over $14,000. The program will soon expand to 2 more areas in China, Shenzhen and Zhejiang, covering 70 million people. Regulators are also asking banks to forego $200 billion in profit this year to help the economy. S&P Global estimates the Chinese industry could suffer a $1 trillion increase in bad debt as the economy sinks to its lowest point in 4 decades. The People's Bank of China and the China Banking Commission released a joint statement telling customers that their money was safe at the Hebei Bank and urged them not to withdraw. Police took people into custody and criticized them for spreading rumors. Regulators are working on a plan to have small banks merge to become stronger, but not much has happened with the plan so far.
And up next, Japanese carmaker Nissan released its first all-electric SUV. Learn more about Tesla's newest competitor after the break.
The coronavirus outbreak is the latest wake-up call.
U.S. Senator Ben Sasse put it plainly, the Chinese Communist Party has lied, is lying, and will continue to lie about coronavirus to protect the regime.
In 5 to 10 years, we'll have virtually no manufacturing capacity left for generic drugs. And again, this is 90% of our medicines.
And the world should know, if Hong Kong falls, the whole world falls, okay? Because the Chinese Communist Party is the existential risk of humanity, period.
Since the CCP took power, 80 million people have died from its policies and political campaigns.
They're using our institutions and our norms and our values against us in ways that we hadn't necessarily envisioned towards their own authoritarian agenda.
From the party's great firewall in cyberspace, or to that great wall of sand in the South China Sea.
More repression, more unfair competition, more predatory economic practices, indeed a more aggressive military posture as well.
If we do not meet this threat now, it's going to define our century.
This week on China Uncensored, the FBI is calling China the greatest threat to America. A U.S. Navy carrier strike force patrols the South China Sea. Plus, Hong Kong's new national security law is way worse than anyone thought. Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NTD America.
Elon Musk must be looking in his rear-view mirror. Nissan is releasing a new all-electric crossover vehicle. It's the first major model since the former chairman stepped down after a major scandal.
Today, we are introducing a car that's more than a car. Ariya represents a new chapter, a new face, and new language. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nissan Ariya.
The Ariya comes with autonomous driving, so it will park itself and brake on imminent collisions, connect to the internet, and offer concierge-like services. It also has features associated with electric cars, such as quick acceleration and a roomy interior.
And the E-Force provides you not only a strong acceleration, but also a very, good stability in any situation, and also, the flat ride feeling in terms of body motion.
Nissan Chief Product Specialist said they started as the world's first EV car mass production company and have gained a lot of feedback to make better electric cars for their customers.
We got a very good positive customer feedback about the acceleration, quietness, smoothness, and so on. So that's why we try to really enhance these good points of the EV.
Editorial director of Autocar magazine, Jim Holder, expressed his excitement to see that electric cars are finally catching up due to the improvement in technology and cost coming down.
And when you start looking at a 300-mile plus electric car for around £40,000, that is an SUV, it's very much on trend in its body styling, then you have to get really excited that electric cars are finally reaching a point where they can match or eclipse in many ways the cars that we've become used to driving over the past 100 or more years.
The Ariya is set to go on sale by the middle of next year in Japan and by the end of 2021 in Europe, North America, and China. It will cost about $46,000 and will be competing against the Tesla Model Y, which now sells for around $50,000 in the US, including incentives and other cost savings of around $6,000.
That's the latest business updates. Thank you so much for watching and hope you have a great weekend. See you on Monday.